have people here at the conference and in this room that have come from all parts of the world. So I'm going to start by saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and maybe for some of you, good night. My name is Sharat, Chander. I'm part of the Java team at Oracle by way of Sun. And all of you have a choice in terms of what sessions you can go to. So the fact that you chose this one today means a lot to not just me, but for our panelists. And the thesis for today's talk, and it's supposed to be an interactive talk, we also want to hear from you, is besides all of that Java knowledge that you're getting in terms of technical improvements, best practices, use cases, throughout the entire range of sessions yesterday and today, this session is all really about the community. It's supposed to represent you, it's supposed to represent your voice, it's supposed to give you visibility to the technology. Now, I'm going to date myself right now. I started using Java back in 1996, and it wasn't the technology that attracted me to it. It was the people. It's the people that actually allowed me to continue to do this for almost 27 years. So we're going to have an interactive discussion. I have some esteemed panelists from the community so we can talk about, and they don't even know the questions I'm going to ask them, so there's been no rehearsing or prepping, so there's no safety net today. Be careful. But we also want to hear your questions and your comments, because the goal from this is to not have you leave here with answers, but more questions. Questions that you can continue to ask us, ask me, ask community leaders such as these three esteemed individuals, how we can make the community stronger, better, and grow it to become more inclusive than exclusive. But before we start, I'd like everyone to stand up. You didn't think there was going to be exercise in this. Please stand up. All of you need to stand up too. So I'm going to ask a question. If you have been using Java for 5 years, at least 5 years, remain standing. Ooh. If you've been using Java for at least 5 years, remain standing. Wow, okay. If you've been using Java for 10 years, at least 10 years, remain standing. Wow, okay. If you've been using Java for at least 15 years, remain standing. Oh my goodness. All right, well, this is going to get tricky now. If you've been using Java for at least 20 years, remain standing. Wow, oh my goodness. All right, if you've been using Java for at least 25 years, remain standing. If you've been using Java for at least 27 years, remain standing.
1997? Yeah.
All right. What? Hold on. Jose, you need to stay standing up. You should be moderating this talk, not me. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a journey. So this is all about our shared experience in terms of how community has shaped our lives and how we can take that feedback to make it even better. So when we ask that question again, all of you are standing 10, 15, 20 years from now. Because there's going to be a point where I'm already aging out, and it's important that we pass on our expertise, not just with the technology, but with the community to the next generation. So I'm looking to hand that baton off to, maybe it's you, maybe it's you, maybe it's you. So my career arc, I started back in telco in 1992. In telco, there was no notion of a language that was ubiquitous, that whole write once, write anywhere promise. We're using multiple languages internally, and lo and behold, we learned about this 4-letter application, programming language, platform. It's like, what is Java? And it helped just solve many of our problems. But it wasn't just the technology. We had to learn from the people that were using it, the experts. And in 2000, for some reason, I still don't know why to this day, Sun knocked on my door and said, we want you to come and work on Java. So on December 8th of 2000, I started my career at Sun in working on the Java team, and it has literally shaped my career profoundly. I have been doing this since then, both in terms of technology development, but more recently, the last 18 years, is doing this, driving the community forward. And it's because of the people that I keep doing this. Because there's a famous quote from my father, I consider it famous, is, "You know less than you know." You know less than you know. And that told me, Shar, every day is a new learning opportunity. How can I make myself better? There's only so much that we can get from a book, or watching a tutorial, or reading a video, watching a video, read a video. We learn better in this moment, that shared experience. This face-to-face engagement matters. The digital platform extends this. It can't replace this. We're humans. There's a human connection. And that's what Java really is all about. It is that human connection. So we're going to explore a little bit about that trajectory through the lived experience of our three esteemed panelists today, which I would like for them to, number one, introduce yourself, and number two, explain to these amazing people why community matters to you. Why don't we start with you, Brent?
Hi, I'm Brant Bayman. I'm a principal software engineer at Warner Brothers Discovery. A little closer. All right, a little louder. Repeat the question?
Who are you?
Who am I? Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I'm Brant Bayman.
You want me to answer that for you?
Sure, yeah. Principal software engineer at Warner Brothers Discovery. I am a co-leader of the Knoxville, Tennessee Java Users Group. Been running that for about 5 years now. But I've been, as we saw from the standing poll, been doing Java development for about 27 years through various companies, a lot of consulting work, the last 10, 12 years in the media industry. That's who I am. That's what I've been working on. The community around us, maybe 6 or 7, 8 years ago, there's a conference out of Knoxville called CodeStock, right? And for a long time, the Knoxville area has been dominated by the .NET platform. I worked in the Java platform there for, like I said, 27 years, the past 27 years. And we got invited to come to a conference that's run there called CodeStock. And so I went to all these talks, right? And I felt embarrassed with the seniority level that I had not contributed to a local conference that had been operating for 8 or 9 years, right? So submitted to the CFP the following year, gave a couple talks at conferences around the area, and with one of my colleagues, Wade Chandler, you guys may know, also runs the Knoxville Java Users Group with me. On a road trip to Huntsville, Alabama, to a conference called DevSpace, we decided we're actually going to start a Java Users Group, right? There's an underserved population in Knoxville. They don't have an outlet. There's a lot of Java developers there, but they don't know each other because they're in these isolated pockets of the enterprise. So we decided then that when we get back, we're going to start a Java Users Group. We're going to get all the people we know. We're going to let that network reach. And now we have a network of about 300 members. So we're doing pretty well. And it's all because of people like you, right? One of our first outreaches was to Pratik and Vince that we'd known from this conference. And we said, hey, how can we get started? What advice can you give us? And through a network of Pratik and a bunch of other Java Users Group leaders and Sharat and many others, we've gotten to know so many people and feel blessed to be part of the community.
Thank you. Amar. So 2 questions. What's your name?
Yep.
And why does community matter to you?
Yeah, hi. My name is Amar Yusuf. I'm a senior software engineer over in Tampa, Florida. I work for a company called Idea Refinery. So I've been doing Java development for the past 12 years, and I've worked in industries, mainly defense, life insurance, and stuff like that. So right now I'm working at a consulting company. So, and why community matters to me, and I think similar to what Sharat said, is that you can always be learning and from other people, from people younger than you, from people older than you, because people always come up with new ideas. So I think that's why community matters to me. There's always a drive for me to learn, and I guess also in a way what Brant was saying, it's a way to give back. So that's what I wanted to do. And just coming out here, this is my first Devnexus event that I came out to. So I feel really fortunate to come out here and learn from all these senior leaders that came out here, and just to participate in this conference and see this huge Java community, because, I mean, I don't know, it's just great, just to be here. So I think that's why community matters to me. It's just like a great learning opportunity, great networking opportunity. And I love helping other people grow as well. So
thank you, Umar.
Thank you.
Laura, what is your name, Laura?
Laura Moore.
And what does community matter? Why does community matter to you?
So I am not a traditional computer scientist. I'm one of those career changers. I finished graduate school, decided I wasn't going to stay there, and I was luckily in Atlanta. It was 20 years ago and change, so it was like, hey, here's a Java boot camp, let's do that. And I was lucky. I was lucky that my boot camp leader knew about AJUG, mentioned it, and so I had nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. Let's wander down and meet people. And I think it's made me a better developer, right? Without having that experience, I got to watch talks about how Spring developed. I got to listen, learn about problems that they're not going to, even now kids today don't come out of college knowing about security, about design patterns, about how to be a clean code developer, how to do Agile. And none of that, you can read on that, but it's so much different to hear it from somebody's experience and get that influence. And then, of course, I've been very lucky. I didn't realize how lucky I had it till you start hearing other stories, to have watched Burr Sutter, Gunnar, Pratik, Vincent all lead and have that model of what it is to just sort of be a really great developer, which means, as people have said, giving back and being able to share that wisdom. Not just the knowledge of the code, but the wisdom behind it is something you can only get from community.
You can only get that. Fully agree with everything these three people have said. No disagreements yet. So one of the things that's important, and we know this as developers, is exposure matters. Like, we just don't sit in front of our desk and code and program. We want to ensure that our careers are viable for the next 25 years and beyond. How do these people, these amazing people, get that exposure through community? What are some good practices or recommendations that individuals who perhaps are not visible or recognized should be doing, such that they become the next Burr Sutters of the world, or the Venkats? Any ideas or best practices that you would suggest? Why don't we start with you, Laura?
That's interesting, because I've stayed more quiet. I mean, I've certainly had those models of getting out, and I've tried to dip my water into the speaking, or dip my toe into the speaking water, so to speak. And, for years people are like, oh, join an open source and do open source code. And I'm not the person who's done all of that, right? Like, life, you only have so many hours in a day, and you got to pick and choose what you're doing. So that's, I think, fair. But I would say here, if you really want to go that path, these people are out here to be your mentors, so maybe reach out and just say, I like what you do, how do you get there? And I've been getting tons of advice, just showing up at conferences and stuff. People are always willing to talk about how to get started, always willing to give you an advice. And the tools these days make it much easier, because, right, start a blog, start writing, learn to take the criticism, learn to organize your thoughts. Giving talks is not as bad as it looks. It really isn't. Audiences are very, very friendly, despite the horror stories you may have been told. And so, yeah, if you want to do it, it's just a matter of choosing to do it. It's putting in the time.
It is putting in the time. So one of the things.
Say that conference organizers are the unsung heroes. People who help.
Say that again.
Conference organizers are unsung heroes, and people who help them, and everyone. Can't have speakers without that. So.
And we did not pay you to say that.
Yeah. But we don't have conference organizers without speakers. It is mutual.
And I think sometimes we get into this mind space that the only way to get exposure, to make yourself even more visible, to extend your career, is that concept of speaking. And I don't think you always have to go that route, that I have to submit to a CFP, go to a conference. Some of that learned experience to make you a better developer is being able to express your skills. And you can do that through the forms of things like a meetup or mentoring programs. And if you don't know how to do those things, reach out to individuals like Brant, like Amar, like Laura, like other peers in this room. We can help you we can help you. Because the only way you're going to improve as a developer is to take what's here and put it here. So Amaro, any ideas in terms of best practices or tips that could empower your visibility?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think what Laura was saying as well is like there's only so many hours in the day, right? And there's so many technologies that you want to learn. So I think one thing that makes sense to me or comes to me right away is, you know, going to your community and learning from them as well and seeing what the failures are, what they can do, and learn from them. You know, they might tell you like, you know, I tried this and that and, you know, it didn't work out for me, so maybe try this. So I think that would be another useful idea to use the community in that sense.
So we talk about Java as a shared experience. The community contributes to the success, to drive the technology forward, to evolve it. How many people in this room are part of the OpenJDK project? Wow. Wow. This is perhaps one of the best starting points for any of you, because you don't necessarily have to fully participate, but at least that gives you an immersion in terms of what are the design decisions, what are the code check-ins, what's the conversation, and just by reading that can also enrich you. So I would highly suggest, if you haven't been to openjdk.org, go take a look, find the projects that interest you, that map to what you're trying to do or what you want to do, and just join the project. That is an easy entry point. And just by being part of that conversation, it does make you visible. What about you, Brent?
I just wanted to mention something real quick. I was actually talking to another Jug leader yesterday from Utah, Jonathan. He's right over there. And, you know, he brought up a really good point. He's like, I want to hear about your failures. You know, I want to go to talks and tell me how you failed. And I thought that was really a neat idea. So just wanted to mention that.
It's interesting, that word failure. We get wound around the axle about failing to avoid it. And the first step of succeeding is failing. So if you've succeeded, eventually, have you really failed? It's just the first step in terms of that learning process. So we as a collective community to understand, failure is okay as long as you continue to progress and not give up. And know when you hit a wall, you have other people to turn to. And I know sometimes your projects at work might be very specific that you can't share, but when it comes to just good coding practices or design patterns, we have this amazing pool of knowledge that can be resourced and used and consumed and then extended. Because learning doesn't come from just consuming it. It's adapting it and changing it. Just like the language of the platform, we also have to evolve the community. Brent, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned joining the OpenJDK, right? And I think that's an excellent, very easy step, right? Joining the JCP as an individual member is a very easy thing to do. Observing, right? So it's one thing to get to know all the people in this room, right? And become friends and get to know and collaborate with them. But you can start just by observing what these people are doing, right? And they're doing a lot. You know, Chandra's sitting here in their front row, very visible, right? Always outspoken. You know, I see Rodrigo in the back, recent Java champion. Like you can just watch these people online, right? They're on Twitter, they're on, you know, virtual meetups, right? There's a lot you can just observe and try to get involved, get to know these people in some way, virtually, drop them a message. They're all very friendly. You know, it can be intimidating. You see these people that you've watched and learned so much from online or at conferences, and you see them huddled around if you're at a conference. It's difficult to break into that conversation sometimes, but these people are all wonderful, right? Step in, join the conversation, just get to know people.
Does everyone, let me ask the question a different way. Who here does not know what the Java Champions program is? Does not know? Okay. It's good to know that most of you know that, but let's give some context. Java Champions is an independent body of Java technology experts who have an unbiased voice in the say of what Java is or what Java isn't. And these individuals travel the world, speak, share knowledge, and represent a separate voice from Oracle. We started that Java Champions program back in 2005, and it's now grown to over 360, almost 400 members on every corner of the planet. Well, not Antarctica yet. We're working on it. But these individuals are all visible. They are your learning resources. They can be your guru. They can be your mentor. You can help even sometimes apprentice based on their work. Chander Gunter, I want you to stand up, please. One of the few gentlemen that I love just pointing out, because Chandra takes his content and he shares it widely for free. And you can interact with him and ask him questions, and that just becomes a source of knowledge for you to tap into. Bert-Jan came all the way here from the Netherlands. Bert-Jan, stand up, please. Actually, I want everyone from the Netherlands team to stand up. What you see here are individuals. These are just 4 amazing individuals from the Netherlands Java user group who invest in their community, who hold conferences, who create meetups, who do hackathons, who publish magazines as a learning resource. It's a thankless job, but they're doing it for you. Things that you can tap in. It doesn't always have to be local. There are global user groups around the world. Does anyone have a guess how many Java user groups there are around the world? Oh, which, by the way, thank you. I have to give a shout out to the NL Jug. I keep telling them they are, and no disrespect to the other jugs, but they have literally invited me into their family and have treated me as part of that family, and I've never been so embraced, which gives me fuel to stay motivated. So I just want to say a special thanks to all of you at the NL Jug. So, by the way, so back to my question. Take a guess. How many Java user groups are around the world? Raise your hand. I just want to hear what you think it might be. Yes, sir. And what's your name?
Adrian.
Adrian.
I'm going to say 275.
275. Richard. A billion. 400. And what's your name? 1,000. That's an interesting spectrum. 1 million. And the low end was 275. The official number that we track is 368. But we know it's a magnitude larger than that because the formulation of a Java user group requires some structure. But there's also unstructured user groups around the world. Sometimes it's in a school, sometimes it's embedded in a company. And it's fair to say, if your company doesn't have an embedded Java user group and you want one started, contact me. I'll help you. There are best practices. We've been doing this program since 1999, excuse me, and it has now blossomed. And we need more Java user groups. It doesn't have to be officially in a city. It could be in your company, in your university. We need to start galvanizing the people we know locally, connect them together, and share that lived experience. I have a question from our panelists now. Oracle acquired Sun back in 2010, and we try to continue to invest in not just the technology, but the community. I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. 1, what are the investments that you appreciate Oracle is making in Java? But 2, what are investments you see Oracle not making that you want Oracle to make in the community? You can take the gloves off.
So the appreciated innovations, right? I mean, there are many, right? I think Oracle has done, maybe off to a little bit of a rocky start post that acquisition, but since a couple years after that acquisition, I think Oracle's been a fantastic steward of the language, of the platform, evolving it for performance reasons, right? I think there are times, even though we're on the 6 months cadence, right, that it still feels like certain things are moving too slow for the environment around us, right? And I'm sure that's recognized within Oracle as well. This platform should have been on top of the machine learning space, right? If we had had easier foreign function interface, Panama, right, sooner, right? Because Python's just wrapping native libraries anyways, right? If we had been on top of that game sooner, we would have naturally evolved from the big data space out of Hadoop and Spark and those platforms into ML. So, I think trying to target earlier what the patterns are and reacting quicker, and I know that's a very difficult thing to request, but that's what the request is from the
You
community.
want us to move faster.
I mean, there's a speed with which we move in development, and that's good. There's a responsible part to the Java platform itself, but there's ecosystem around core Java that we can experiment with and move and invest in that don't have to be part of core Java, right? So,
Thank you. Amar.
Yeah, thanks. So I should probably preface this saying that I don't have too much knowledge on this topic, but one thing I would like to say on this is that I do like, after the acquisition, how Oracle did keep some of the tools around, like, for example, NetBeans, and how they are still supporting that IDE. So that's one thing that I did like about it. So, but not much more else to say. I'm very limited in this knowledge area, but.
What would you like us to do more of?
I think more community, but I'm a fairly new jug leader, just started recently last year. So, coming out here and speaking with Sharat and like learning from other jug leaders, I'm learning about other opportunities as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Laura?
So yeah, I remember when Oracle took over and the fear everybody had, because Oracle's reputation for closing off things was well earned in my experience. So I'm very glad that they didn't do that with Java, right? It's become even more open. The idea of it spinning out into these new organizations, OpenJDK, the things they've handed off to Jakarta has been very nice to still have access to all of that. And I'm surprised now when I really look at it, how many of the tools that they really could be making money off of that are still open. Or at least, they made their money and got them open very quickly, which is nice. I guess it's always been tough that with Oracle owning Java, it doesn't feel like you go to Oracle for Java knowledge, right? I mean, yeah, the original, the Java site still has a lot of good starting places. Sometimes that's where I send people and they're like, how do I learn Java? Well, go do the tutorials online, but at the same time, to get an Oracle speaker to come to a jug is really hard. To find to find out information about things in the community from the Oracle site. Is that possible? I don't know. I've never experienced it.
I couldn't have planned that response any better, which is great. And the answer is yes. Some of you might remember the Java Community Connection portal that we had at Sun. And it evolved, and Oracle had to create an instance that made sense in this new world. Just last year, almost 2 years now, we launched a new portal called dev.java. Who does not know dev.java? See, I should be talking about this more often. It is literally the place to learn about all things Java. We have tutorials, best practices, information on community. We're happy to highlight your jug. We're happy to highlight your event. We want to highlight more of the Java champions around the world. And very shortly, we're also going to start including community contributions to dev.java. Because right now, to ensure we have a foundation of information that's stable in terms of pouring the concrete, obviously a lot of that content is going to come and be generated from Oracle. But you represent an extended voice. It's important we include you in that. So be patient. News will be forthcoming shortly in terms of how you can also use that platform to also not just get information, but share information.
Yeah, I was going to say, corollary to that dev.java, there's also inside.java, right, which is a fantastic site for perhaps more experienced folk who just want to observe, like I mentioned before, observe what's going on around the OpenJDK project itself. Like, one of my favorite things about that site is how it will highlight a thread in one of the mailing lists and draw my attention to it without me having to dig at the mailing list constantly, right? So it's very popular conversations there, sort of bubble up to inside.java top level, almost like an article, so it's fantastic.
Yep. So there are two sides to that coin. Dev.java is the portal for all things in terms of learning, sharing, and community. Inside.java is a capture of all of the publications and articles and information the Java team authors. It's fully taggable. You can search on it, find the threads and conversations that map to your area of interest. It is also extremely useful resource. So if you haven't bookmarked dev.java or inside.java, your opportunity is to do that either here on your phones or when you step away. But that we need your feedback as well. We have an idea of what will work, but we need you to tell us what is needed in addition to make that even more enriching in terms of your Java journey. Yes, sir. What's your name? Okay. Could we have you stand up and actually here? So many layers to inside.java. We have a team of advocates that publish information in multiple modalities. We all have a different learning experience and pathway. So we do things like podcasts, screencasts. We have short form and long form. We're not on TikTok yet. I'm trying to. We are on TikTok now? I guess I'm going to have to adapt because learning continues to evolve. Okay, so I guess we're on TikTok now. Are we really?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, I am.
Oh. Actually,
Jose's on TikTok.
That's a good segue. So Jose Pumard, could you please stand up? So a lot of interesting people in this room. Jose Pumard is one of the co-organizers of the Paris Drug. He also helps develop conferences like Devox Paris, which is when?
Next week.
Are you going to invite everyone? But it's just meant to show you that there's so many pockets of where that learning can happen. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So like I said, I wanted to keep this a bit interactive. I wanted to hear your questions, not just for myself, but panelists, in terms of what does community mean to you? What are you not getting? What are some ideas that we should be considering? One of the things that we're extremely interested in is that learning experience, that pathway. I remember back in the 90s where certifications were the Ferrari of displaying your talents. Do certifications still matter? Are there other learning paths that are important to you? Or other questions just around community that you just don't see happening that you want to see happen? I'm curious. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Okay.
And where are you from?
From Guatemala, from the Guatemala Java User Group.
Excellent.
So maybe not a question but an opinion. I think that when we are like starting a job and do meetups, conference, being a speaker, sometimes we forgot about the basics. We try to do this kind of sessions with fancy names and complex topics. But remember, there is a younger generation that is coming and they need to learn the basics. So please do more conferences and sessions about the basics of Java.
It's good feedback. You mean maybe set up an entirely dedicated track for the basics?
Yeah, that should be.
That should be?
Barry.
Yes, Barry. Please stand up.
I would like to say that I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
So at my lunch hallway track, I came across the topic because, right, the elephant in the room is GPT and what's happening with that. And it occurred to me, like, if I hadn't had the community experience, I wouldn't even know the questions to ask. And so as you say, like, exactly that. I learned all of my basics through my community, but again, you're right, I don't see us presenting that as well. Like, we just can't get people excited to teach that anymore. And especially getting younger kids, because at the time I was learning it, the people teaching me, although I didn't realize it, were learning it themselves. And so how do we get the people who are learning it to continue to share their early journey? Because that, I think, is probably more valuable than getting to hear, getting to hear where I am now. Like, I can't communicate at that same energy anymore to that problem. But we do need those younger speakers.
It's interesting you talk about the hallway track. Just today, this morning, I was approached. Why are there always sessions and content or screencasts about going deep in Project Loom or understanding more of the enhancements of Amber. I want to know more about the experience of the individual and the expert who's publishing that information. What was their story arc? What did they have to go through? How did they get to that point of experience? How are they continuing to learn? And I think one of the things we as conference organizers, meetup organizers, Java user groups is to have sessions or dialogues about the people. The more we learn about each other, the good, the bad, the fears, the uncertainties, the doubts, the confidence, I think we have a better opportunity to then say, okay, I can then go and dive into that technical information. Please go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to say, but all of us face our own imposter syndrome, and so it's hard to have that conversation about yourself.
It absolutely is, and we here as a community are here to lift people up because, like I said, I've been doing this for 27 years. A day doesn't go by where I don't have imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm not. I mean, I work with the Mark Reinhold and Brian Getzes of the world. How will I ever reach their level? How will I ever reach their level? And it's a flawed goal because my goal shouldn't be to reach their level. It should be reach my level. I can take inspiration from them, but it's important for us to be our authentic self. Remember that. And not try to mimic someone. We can take best practices, but there's only one Venkat in the world. That's important. We want to aspire to be successful like him and be able to present like him and share like him, but we can't be him. We can only be ourselves. So, yes, Barry.
Yeah, I was in the middle of writing a book about Java, and then 9/11 was sort of waning. Its influence on the world was sort of waning, and I discovered the New York Java SIG, and actually went to my first Java user group meeting and discovered that what I was writing was not what I should be writing about. And suddenly it just changed my whole outlook on the whole thing. And I made it a promise to myself that I would keep going because it was so important to not just read about Java online, but to be in there with people who were communicating what's really going on, what's really important. Changed everything for me.
I saw another hand. There was a question or a comment? Yes. Please stand up and what's your name?
My name is Irfan.
Irfan.
I'm by no means a programmer, but I manage, programming teams. So there's always talk about community, like not enough students going into STEM's team, right? And there's talk about getting them started early, right? Exposing them to technology and so on and so forth, right? So are the JUGs involved in those activities within the school system to recruit from the get-go, right? To at least talk about the basics, Java, and encouraging them, showing them the path, at least, triggering, giving them, planting that seed to, at least for them to think about, and then, recruiting them into this over a period of time.
I saw a hand. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment on that.
So, Bert-Jan?
So I'm in the NLJ board, Netherlands Java Youth Group. We have around 5,000 active members in the Netherlands. And we have an active outreach to educational institutions in the Netherlands. So schools, high schools, for example, or professional education. We give students a free membership to the NLJUG, so they can become a free member for 2 years. We send them invites to our conferences. They can come to our conferences for free. One time, an entire bus came with students right by the time that drinks were starting. So they missed out the whole conference. They were just coming for drinks. So we sent them back home and told them next year come when the conference starts. But in general, this works out pretty fine. They get our Java magazine for free, which is a printed magazine. And we regularly present on events organized by those educational institutions to tell them about the Java community and try to pull them in. But it is significantly harder, I think, than to get people on board who already have a professional career in Java. So it's also, I think, important to present stuff that's interesting to those students. We see that the ones we do get into JFL, for example, they're hugely inspired after a day like this, but it is rather difficult to get them in.
It is. So, I mean, we have to pick where do we start, and that K through 12 range is highly important. But oftentimes we focus our energies on mostly perhaps high schools or predominantly at the college level, and it's inherent that we're seeding the future, and it's really we need more Java user groups to give space for that student discussion and interaction like they're doing in the NL Java. Absolutely. Barry, please.
Yeah, we had a Java user group leader meeting on Tuesday, and one of the questions that I asked when I was standing up and had the mic was how many Java user groups present actually had outreach to students. There were about 6 responses, and how many jugs do you think were represented there? 20, 30, something of that sort?
Less than 40.
The point is, great idea. Jugs want to do it, but we're not all there yet. We're trying, and it's really difficult to have sessions that appeal to both the expert and the novice. But we're making an effort, and anything that anybody wants to do to encourage us jugs to do that and to help out, absolutely welcome. Absolutely fantastic idea.
So, it feels like a good time to channel my inner Ginny Boyarsky and mention, who here has heard of First Robotics? Do you know what language they use? Java. So there's a high school near you, probably more than one, that have kids that are trying desperately to learn how to code in Java. And good Java. I've seen the libraries that they use. They're impressive. And so they're solving, hard problems that you would have a challenge with to do correctly, because they are doing autonomous control of robots. And yeah, if you're motivated to do this, if your jug's motivated to do this, they will be happy to take you as a mentor and let you help them win championships. And it's a global program, so every country in the world.
So at Oracle, we have a philanthropic group called Oracle Academy. They actually have curricula both for students and teachers at different varying levels of expertise in terms of novice, intermediate, expert, that you can also tap into. So if you're not familiar with Oracle Academy, simple browser search, that should give you some information, at least to digest as a starting point. And if you want to help influence that, again, we readily accept feedback. We're voracious about feedback. In fact, we want more feedback. I saw a hand. Okay, so I would like to give people some time back. We would like to wrap this up, but before we depart, I would like for you to, this is a point, you remember, there was no script. You didn't know what questions are coming. What is your favorite Java conference in the world? And I'm going to step back.
I don't think anybody's got a surprise about which one's mine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for sure, it's Devnexus. Devnexus has been great.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of conferences. This is my favorite one for a few reasons. I usually get to bring about 12 to 15 of my colleagues because it's just a quick 3-hour drive down for us. We didn't get to do that this year due to travel restrictions, but I meet so many people here every year. The content is fantastic. The show is fantastic. The presentation is fantastic. Right? Everything about Devnexus makes this the best conference in the world.
I just wanted to mention one last thing. Brant was saying earlier, go out to these people that you see on Twitter and stuff like that and meet them, and they're really approachable. And I just wanted to share a quick story of mine. So I started using NetBeans around a decade ago, and I started following Geert John on Twitter. And to see him here in person and meet him very approachable was just like, I don't know, crazy to me. So I just wanted to share that story. Come out and talk to these people. I've been talking to everybody. I've been learning a lot of senior leaders here. So it's just great. Everybody's been super nice, super kind, super helpful. So, yeah.
To me, the most successful technology conferences are not just about the technology and the learning. It's the connections, it's the sharing, it's the collaborating. You have to look at these experiences as something that is well-rounded in terms of what you're going to get. So if you're only going to sessions, you're missing out on a very large part of why these conferences are successful. Which, by the way, the best one-day Java conference in the world is JFall. If you don't know JFall, circle it on your calendar and go there. It's in the Netherlands, put on by the NL Jug. To me, that is the best one-day Java conference on the planet. Some of you might have seen me on social earlier this week, yesterday. The best multi-day Java conference on the planet, Devnexus. Absolutely. So mark those two. Go to both. I wanted to thank all of you for, one, making the time and attending. I hope this was useful to at least start formulating additional questions besides the answers you got. You are absolutely welcome to reach out to me, to all of these other Jug leaders, and I will say this again. We need your feedback. There's only so much Oracle can do in terms of technology leadership. That stewardship part comes from a shared relationship with you. I need you as much as you might need me. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at Devnexus, and I hope to see all of you again next year. All right, thank you.